Hello everyone! We're here today with chapter 61. I'm Kyles, and now we're going to introduce the rest of the cast before we get started. We'll start at the top of this Discord list. Gojo, get us started.
I'm Gojo's Domain, and I'm a narrator, up-and-coming narrator.
Heck yeah.
I'm Gold. I'm Felix in this chapter. I meow and do a lot of meowing.
Hello
and
everyone!
yeah,
We're here
hope you
today
enjoy
with
that.
chapter 61.
Oh, sorry,
I'm Kyles,
I forgot to
and
mute.
now we're going to
There we go.
Oh,
Sorry.
Back up to the top, boys.
Oh, God dang.
Thank you, Gold. Matter?
Hello, my name is Matter. I am attempting to help out with some various things around the place. That's me.
Yep.
Nice.
well, good.
Nice.
We need help around our places.
I need a maid.
If our places mean our skull to help us cure us of our mental illnesses, then yeah, that's.
Maddie?
I'm Maddie. I'm a mod and I'm a keeper of announcements.
Yes, you are, thank God.
I'm Pat. I voice Reinhard. I'm happy to be here. Hi.
Oh, we're happy you're
Let's
here.
go.
And I'm Wolf. I voice Subaru and Liliana.
Wolfiana.
No.
Don't be mistaken by the fact that the portrait says Kylie there.
Oh,
She is.
yes.
We're using the
She
same
is.
microphone.
She is not
Oh God,
Wolf,
that's right.
and Wolf is not her.
I am that. Alright, we are one. Oh,
Kylie can do some great impressions. Yes, Setaway, this is the Matterfied.
the
one, the only.
one, the only. Are you all ready for chapter 61?
I don't know, Chad. Are you guys? I don't think you guys have shown that you're ready yet.
I don't think they're prepared quite yet.
And this time I won't puke. Let's go! 'Cause
Yes!
Are
we're
you guys
recording.
excited?
Oh, so excited.
Yay! I'm so excited.
Make sure, if you're excited, to drop a like. It helps us a lot.
Smash a like, hit that bell icon.
Smash that like, share it.
Subscribe,
Be sure to
share.
comment,
Sub-
share to
scribble.
your friends.
It seems like only
Oh!
98% of you are, yeah, like, okay.
It's weird. All you guys are
Smash
watching this
that
right
like
now,
button.
and you haven't donated $5.
Is that a purple I see?
There was a
purple.
purple.
Oh, he vanished.
Ugh, disconnected. Purple, when you're back, come say hi. Looking playlist for the other. Yes, I gotta fix up the playlist. Also, disclaimer for this chapter, I have to revisit the music. I slapped it in last minute. Literally just finished the audio for the chapter.
Yeah, we'll
So-
re-edit some a bit.
Yes,
Yeah.
when I'm starting to re-release these chapters. So we do them live in stream, and then I'll have the VOD posted.
Good. I was about to say because our banter in the beginning might be a bit tonally dissonant with the rest of the chat.
Facts.
I think it's quite on par for my character, actually.
Yeah, if everyone knows the true
Actually.
lore of KylesMigyles, they will know this is exactly how she is at all times.
Ahoy.
Ahoy!
The hidden
Anyways, let's
darkness
set
of-
sail for
You
the
ready?
chapter.
Let's go. We're gonna be muted for a second. It's gonna be an awkward transition, but we will get started. Thank you all. Please let us know if you can hear us, but I don't think you can. And we will see you after the chapter. Enjoy.
Have fun.
Arc 5, Chapter 61, Victim of the Territory. Capella lightly tilted her head towards the man chattering without rest, blue dragon sword wielded in his one hand. A braid composed of 3 strands of hair, long and dark, spilled upon her white shoulder. With arms folded as if to emphasize her plump chest, she bent forward, casting a mesmerizing gaze towards the man wearing the helmet. Using that bewitching gaze to tempt a man's eyes, it would drive a man's instincts wild, even if he knew it was a trap. However, whether such a demonic scheme would be effective would depend on the opponent.
That erotic pose is indeed quite something, but if your goal is to seduce me, it's useless, you know. For a hardcore virgin, to make me thirst after a passerby Oni-chan's got such a high difficulty that I'm practically laughing.
Demeaning your own frivolous words and having moderate restraint. Setting aside whether this lovely lady goals apply to you. You are a man who gives the impression of not gobbling this up. after putting on an act of a harlequin to catch me off guard. What are you going to do with that thick thing?
Women shouldn't be spouting dirty jokes like that. It's a real turn-off.
Capella's seemingly provocative gaze turned into an expression of speechlessness after the man's response. The aura of surprise quickly dissipated as well, and Capella laughed as if happy from the bottom of her heart.
What is that? That remark at that age? With that demeanor? The maiden of your dreams lives only within your chest. You're without a doubt a flower in a greenhouse, with an entirely different way of looking and place from which you regard things. Aren't you? Yeah? How dirty.
Though I apologize for interrupting your show, don't make me say it over and over. I'm not in the mood today. I couldn't really tell you if you asked me when it is that I am in the mood, especially today, so...
Capella tapped her feet with an attitude not befitting her appearance toward the posturing man. Al's attitude became extremely complex and irritated. Rather than posturing, it seemed to be that he was dissatisfied with this task from the bottom of his heart. Being rather different from the two people from above on this point, this led Capella to become increasingly intrigued.
Not in the mood? Finding this a bother? And yet not clearing the way? Your words are entirely full of contradictions. In that case, why the hell are you still in the company of a fractious maniac like myself?
The nerve of you to say it yourself, you raucous maniac.
Of course I'd say it. In any case, from this lovely lady's perspective, absolutely everything that exists in this world is just a way to pass time. You're all, and entirely, ultimately objects of this lovely lady. This lovely lady's love is boundless, filled with mercy, because everything aside from seeking love from this lovely lady is unnecessary. Anything else to do with it as you like.
Spreading her arms, Capella smiled with the sweet expression of a poisonous flower. Al, looking at this smile, with a whoosh sound, dropped the blade of the blue dragon sword. Twisting his neck so that his bones made a crack, he spat out a long sigh.
That's it. You're rather different from the other Sims I've known.
Oh my. You've seen other meats rotted beyond rot? That perverted female meat who resents her own longing? That virgin bastard with minuscule ability? That low-life brat of bizarre eating and vile character? Or was it that sick in the head, sick in consciousness, sick in thought, self-entitled spirit? No matter which. For companions, they're the absolute worst choices. Haven't your parents taught you? Choose your companions carefully.
Unfortunately, my current friends are the type my parents warned me about.
That too deserves condolences. Even if you're like that, will you embrace this lovely lady's August love? Remove that helmet and reveal your face. Embrace and devote love to this lovely lady.
No matter how contemned or rebuffed, Capella, who carried out the gestures of seeking love, was the epitome of a mind which sought love, except that referring to a most extreme, one-sided love with no regard of others, forcefully plundering love as love, was a misnomer. Of course, not a single person would answer back to her love, which, rather than being called awkward, would be better described as completely disregarding of human nature. Al raised the blue dragon sword that he had just lowered, slowly shaking his head.
Apologies. I'm happy you feel that way, but the two of us are still unfamiliar with each other, and it'd be embarrassing if any odd rumors spread amongst my friends. Please, accept my refusal.
Something like giving regard to the gazes of outsiders? Don't you still have quite the cute aspects? Is this lovely lady that's lacking here? I didn't think this wouldn't be outside the sexual preferences of garbage, masochistic male meats who enjoy being ordered out by women.
Huh?
Disregarding of others, harsh eyes. A body which could even be filled with both sensuality and violence. A stature shorter of this lovely lady's current is showing plenty of lovely skin, while the words changing along with mood, never growing menacingly arrogant, and in her character always held up with logic and self-confidence, handling many tasks over to subordinates but rarely becoming reliant on them. Not likable, but not dislikable. The position and the woman both.
While chattering on endlessly, Capella's figure metamorphosed. Still maintaining her plump body, but shortening her height, her clothing transformed into a bold dress which boldly revealed her shoulders and back. Eyes on the face changing from sleepy to sharp, from her keen gaze overflowed an atmosphere of confidence. What appeared was a beautiful woman with long golden hair hanging loose. Although not the appearance of any particular person amongst his associates in the city, to some extent, she resembled the woman whom Al associated with.
Oops, not blonde. If it's someone from Lagunica, this should most likely be. In that case... Red? Orange it is.
Observing Al's subtle reactions, Capella's hair color changed bit by bit, testing black, brown, green, blue, hesitating for a moment when it became red, then becoming orange. With just this, she had assumed an impression ridiculously similar to a very familiar woman.
How hair-raising. Where have you met Princess?
Never seen her, never spoken to her, never even realized her existence. I merely deducted the type of woman you like from your reactions. This lovely lady is a woman who will give her all, you know. I want you to like it. So as a matter of course I do my best. To be liked by the party I want to like me.
Speaking of reactions, my face is...
Voice, movement, speech patterns, angle of neck, and the line of sight, attitude, from chatting, understanding your attitude, nature, preferences. One twitch or one movement, not missing a single one. Putting in the entirety of her heart and soul to be loved. This is the way this lovely lady utterly devotes her all. This lovely lady has already utterly devoted her life like this, so... Look at this lovely lady. Look only at this lovely lady. Don't look at anyone else. This lovely lady's face, body, voice, attitude, gestures, all of it! All of it! They should all be totally, completely in line with your preferences.
As she spoke, the voice of Capella, rather Capella who had assumed Priscilla's appearance, gradually grew rough. Her claims were a straight line of desire to please, but a line too straight would become a love that would pierce right through its target. It seemed as if Al could not even respond with shaking his head or reply with words, instead only being able to ready his entire body's will to fight as a response. At this silent answer, on Capella's face grew discouragement and contempt.
You a selfish scummale meat? Which aspect of this lovely lady are you dissatisfied with?
Don't misunderstand. I neither like nor dislike you. Either way is fine. Sorry, that's a lie. As expected, you're disgusting, so I really don't like you.
You adulterous, rotting male meat!
Stomping her feet, Capella's right arm began to transform into a huge head of a wolf, starting from her shoulder. The ferociously howling beastly head at speeds beyond what the eye could process flew towards Al, frozen in place. In a moment, the fangs of that head, sharp as blades, gnawed on the entirety of Al's upper body with a single bite. The instant before, Al's body flew forward into the gap of the approaching canine fangs, flying horizontally to escape by a hair.
Don't think you can escape with just that.
Like I'd think that. The side! And next, the back!
Over Al's head as he rolled on, a powerful attack from a hand slammed down. It was a giant hand, each of its 5 fingers comparable in size to a human torso. Being caught in its grip would be akin to being caught by a snake. However, this attack too was evaded by Al with a backstep. And then the wolf's head returned, its fangs looking to crush Al's waist, but it was stopped by the blue dragon sword, wielded behind his back.
Whoa! Donut!
Without completely dispelling the momentum of the attacking beast, and all while maintaining his blocking stance with the blue dragon sword, Al's body slid forwards. Midway through the canto, a wall of earth rose from the ground, slamming directly from below into the right arm that had become a beast. The wolf whose lower jaw had been struck let out a wail, and the shifted mass of her right arm led Capella's entire posture to collapse. Seeing this, Al, having dodged the left arm's onslaught as well, rushed forward.
Dona! This side too! Dona!
The Dona that Al so incessantly launched was the lowest tier of earth magic. Whether in power or durability as a wall, both were perfectly aligned with its nature as the lowest tier of magic. Even so, Al still relied on this magic as his best tactic in life-threatening combat. Forming obstacles, blocking field of vision, forming a foothold, exactly like he was doing in this moment.
Do!
A solidly formed wall of soil hindered the movements of Capella's distant right and left arms. In addition, Capella's body itself was assaulted by a wall of dirt that obscured her frontal vision. Then, with the preparations in place, Al rose into the air. Using speed and momentum from the earth rising from the floor, he launched forward as if he had been ejected by a spring. The moment she heard these shouts, Capella glanced overhead, and a flash appeared upon her slender neck, her head flying away. A face similar to Pristilla's own danced through the air, and a tremendous amount of blood splurted from the wound. Capella's blood seemingly possessed an unidentified poisonous effect, the very reason for Crucia's previous suffering. Of course, even having been warned to not brush the excess of blood,
Who do you think you're fooling, you damn liar?
stepping into this pool of blood with no mercy, Al stuck out his blue dragon sword. The tip of the blade did not hesitate in the slightest to reach through the back of Capella's headless body, penetrating through it and coming out through her cleavage, adding yet another fatal injury to an opponent who was supposed to have died. However, it did not stop at this.
Take this, Aldona!
Sweeping up the pierced body, Al flew forward and incanted with momentum. One level higher than Dona, L-tier magic using the blue dragon sword as a pivot was activated within Capella's body. Of course, Capella's body was unable to suppress the mass that had swelled from the inside and scattered into an explosion. With the foolish sound as if it were a joke, Capella's body turned to shreds. Hands and feet scattered and flew away, pink viscera and bright red staining the entire underground space. In that frigid air, those pieces of meat even seemed to give off warmth, finally resulting in a result that one could walk away from.
How's that? This much should.
Shoulders heaving as he caught his breath, Al spoke to Capella, who had become pieces of meat. After something like this, a creature able to survive after being destroyed to this point simply could not exist. Towards Al's declaration of victory, an existence that could respond did not exist. Or at least, that was how it should have been.
How excessive. No matter what, ordinarily things wouldn't go so far.
Fuck.
The one that had received Al's insults of disgust responded in that airy, wicked voice. The voice came not from the dismembered flesh, but from the direction of the head that had been severed at the start. In other words, it came from the place where Capella's head had landed. Capella's head remained on the ground it had rolled to, joyously witnessing Al's reaction.
Sending your head flying. Destroying your heart isn't enough. Isn't that breaking too many rules here?
Head flying and heart destroyed would pose no problem to this lovely lady. But it is rare that you've suddenly become so devoid of a trace of tolerance. This lovely lady right now should be tempting you with your favorite face. Could it have been a slip of the eye? Or could it have been that you're the type who expresses love by inflicting pain?
Before Al, who was reveling in his feelings of helplessness, Capella's head righted itself. The severed head moved sluggishly, black flesh that could not possibly have been present gushing out. Forming a neck as a pedestal, quivering flesh became limbs, the black surface hidden from sight by white skin, turning back to, completely transforming into a golden-haired maiden.
And the pieces of meat scattered here?
Since they're unnecessary, they can dissolve.
Al looked on with amazement as the scattered pieces of flesh that had formed Capella's body started dissolving with the noise. The organs and limbs became like a substance to the black mud, bubbling as they disappeared. Even their method of disappearing inspired disgust to the point of aesthetic fatigue.
Anyway, no hesitation in severing my head, The one from above seems to have been a fake. But wasn't there someone whose comrade couldn't fight anymore? After taking this lovely lady's blood, soaking in it like that, wasn't it scary?
It wasn't some kind of bluff. Though I didn't know what conditions needed to be filled, the knowledge that being dripped on wouldn't be my end is something I've already tested. It was a waste of time to dodge it.
But you haven't shown even a trace of an attempt to avoid it.
It's something you couldn't know about. Head, heart, if both don't work, next time, that severed head will be crushed, no matter how many tries it takes.
Al's extraordinarily tired sigh was even more pain than it had been before the battle had begun. This should have been due to the effect of Capella's tricks, but it seemed that further burden had been placed upon his shoulders after this exchange. In any case, not a trace of damage was left on Capella's freshly regenerated body. In addition to variation and transformation, a regenerative ability to the point of immortality, with even the typically most fatal attacks on head and heart rendered ineffective, this was truly a genuine monster. However, difficult to kill was not synonymous to undefeatable.
There are also methods like freezing the entire body to seal it, or some method like dousing it into the Great Waterfall.
With an unlikable opponent, despair is only natural. But you don't give up at all. Aren't you truly an irrecoverable trash meat? Being motivated is well and good, but can you actually do it? Seems like you're good at petty tricks like dodging and escaping, aren't you? Aren't you lacking a way to actually kill this lovely lady?
Indeed. Even if I died 100 times, I wouldn't be able to kill you. In fact, I've already gone half of the way. But aren't you forgetting something?
Al placed the blue dragon sword over his shoulder and gave a knock, his helmet making a clunking noise. Capella's head swiveled at that question, and in that moment, the tip of the sword was pointed overhead. He was pointing at the city hall, somewhere outside of it.
You had originally intended to disrupt our home base, having deserted your tower, meaning that the ones who went to attack Lust Control Tower will rush back shortly. As long as I keep up these time-buying tactics, naturally you'll be done with soon. For your information, my abilities are okay for buying time, no? I'll try every means to keep you down, to trap you in here. So, if you'd like to run, your chance is now.
Being locked in battle against Capella in solitude, Al used the imminent arrival of reinforcements to try to coerce his opponent into retreating. Upon hearing those words, Capella raised her eyebrow as if surprised, and towards her questioning attitude, Al responded with a
What's that? Your reaction? Even if you have some complaint about my suggestion to withdraw from just now, then...
Do you truly believe that this lovely lady who bothered to come alone into enemy territory wouldn't have prepared measures against troops you sent out?
Huh?
The muscle drama and the swordsmen were placed along the way. Even amongst our puppets, those two are unparalleled in quality. Can your reinforcements really get away so easily?
Gah!
The unforeseen development drew a sound from Al, who looked at the large hole overhead. As if reading his expression through his helmet, Capella continued with a,
By the way, the conversation you had is sealed, you know? So even if you hurriedly try to establish contact with anyone else, you wouldn't be able to reach anyone.
How did you do something like that?
The creator of those magical devices seems to have been a witch. Rumors of such legends have long been passed down in the witch cult, including things like disrupting the wavelength of the conversation mirror.
Due to the nature of this unorthodox annoyance, Al's aim behind the words he had spoken had missed entirely. Although Al had no way of ascertaining the truth of Capella's words, in truth, the two who had been sent from the city hall to take on Lust, Wilhelm and Garfield, would sooner or later clash with her minions. The possibility of returning from a battle between monster and man could only be said to be extremely low, which was to say,
if we're stuck here and with nothing to do, wouldn't it be better to get it over with?
A stalemate. Well, I wouldn't go so far as to call it that.
At Al's vague answer, Capella revealed a faint trace of a smile, and in the moment immediately after, that faint smile melted. Once again, the form of the young girl became an amorphous piece of meat, and just like that, Capella's mask grew exponentially. With a gurgling sound, Capella's form broke the limits of human form, growing huge. Delicate maiden, seductive woman, dignified young man, stern warrior, her flesh grew enormous with the momentum yet unseen, the underground space echoing with laughter. And then appearing after a moment was a dragon of black, whose body blended into the shadow.
I see. You could even turn into a dragon.
Considering the fact that there were no divisions of rooms, the underground was much more spacious than the city hall had been. However, even a space like this could not accommodate the black dragon's huge body so easily. Hearing Al's low voice, the dragon narrowed its golden eyes, and Capella opened her mouth as if to respond to Al. From that mouth came a merciless, scorching breath. The breath of flame seemed to ignite the very air of the underground, as a white light forced its way close to Al. An incantation completely overpowered by the roaring sound created a wall of earth in the volume that breath occupied. However, faced with the overwhelming temperature, the wall failed to mount even a momentary defense before crumbling under the heat. However, Al's purpose did not lie there. The jaw of the black dragon, from which the breath was being released, was hit by a suddenly rising wall of earth. The mouth that generated the breath was forced shut, and instead the black dragon scorched its own throat with its flame. Even so, the flame that the black dragon had spat out before its interruption continued to burn. Towards his back as he tried to escape the range of the heat, green flame approached.
Damn it! Donut! Gah!
Issuing a canto alongside the stench of burning, a wall of earth suddenly slammed into Al's side. Using the momentum, Al was launched into a nearby waterway as he was scorched by the flames. Then, the instant that his back brushed the bottom surface of the waterway, another incantation summoned a wall of earth that sent him flying out of the water.
Shit!
Completely soaked, Al flew from the waterway. In an instant, the razor claws of the black dragon had swept across the waterway's bottom. Splashing up water, the wall that which had carried Al out of the water burst into pieces. Although an invasive maneuver, the ferocious attack on Al continued, as he endlessly avoided and avoided and avoided. Using miraculous movements to evade in such an extremely small space, withstanding attacks from behind that should have been unforeseen, his body's lack of ability was supplemented by his own magic as he continually avoided fatal injuries.
Donut!
The now impatient dragon rotated its enormous body, mowing down with its tail. Faced with this arching blow that battered up a storm, Al used multiple incantations to create 5 earthen walls simultaneously in front of him, reducing the threat of this attack as much as possible, and using his blue dragon sword to block it while jumping backwards, then hitting the ground to roll several times before staying down. The dramatic rolling movements lessened the burden on his body, and Al stood with the blue dragon sword as a crutch. However, the damage had not been completely offset. Hurriedly, through the gap at the bottom of his stained helmet, a large quantity of vomit spilled.
Damn it. On the victim's side this time. Really out of luck here.
Doesn't seem that way, though. Considering your abilities, there's kind of an incomprehensible foolishness in staunchly standing with allies.
Towards Al, who sighed over his current predicament, the black dragon Capella gave a rather uncomprehending praise. Even from her perspective, Al's desperate defensive battle held an inexplicable sense of incongruity. Attacks that should not have been seen through, pursuits that should not have been imagined. Al had all along been using his own ability to survive as long as possible, as if he'd long known all of those choices. However, neither had the leisure to pursue those idle thoughts for now. As for why,
has this been a bit too much?
The reason why Capella, who raised her head, would say so were the faint vibrations transmitted from the surface of the ground. And then, there were fatal sounds coming from the city hall that had continually suffered damage. The foundation of the structure, which had seen too many large battles, had already suffered a great deal of damage. And then the battle that had taken place underground had given the foundation one final blow. The result was the gradual widening of the hole that had served as the trap to send Capella down. And the cracks spread to not only on that floor, but through the entire building. The development after this, even a small child would understand. Collapse.
Stop kidding around. If this territory comes undone, I'll actually die.
Seeing part of the floor fall away from above, Al pushed through the pain, and with labored steps leapt into the flowing waterway. Along with the sound of the water, his body disappeared in the stream of water that flowed underneath the city. Seeing him off, as she maintained the form of a black dragon, Capella gazed upon the gradually collapsing ceiling.
Yep. Interest is wilting. Tired from playing. So forget it.
With murmured words that seemed listless, the black dragon yawned. Like this, that unusual sight went unseen by anyone, being buried under the rubble of the collapsing architecture, pouring down just like a landslide. At the scene of the collapse echoed a low moaning sound. The sound accompanied the sound of the rubble being shoved aside, with several slightly larger stones rolling down from a mountain of rubble. Thanks to this impact, the mountain had collapsed, and from an opening created by the collapse, a white hand protruded. As if searching for something, that slender arm hurriedly attacked the mountain of rubble and made it cascade bit by bit. And then, several minutes after, having finally succeeded in breaking free of the mountain of ruin, Ferris crawled out of the pile of scrap wood, his clothing having become ragged. As he coughed, Ferris spat out vast quantities of soil and blood. Was it sand or was it blood that remained in the gap between his tongue and teeth? No matter which, it did not matter at all to Ferris. Right now, he just wanted to rinse his mouth.
Didn't expect the city hall to collapse. Isn't this more death for nothing?
Ferris used the inside of his dirtied clothing to scrub the blood from his face, wiping away what had dirtied it. Like that, he would return his face to its usual neatness and cuteness. It was nigh unimaginable that a human being could be in this condition, just a few minutes after being caught up in the collapse of a 5-story building, having been crushed, unable to do anything.
Something like that is... That's right! Anastasia-sama!
Cat ears pointing upward, Ferris shouted that name as he looked around him. Anastasia had volunteered to appear in Krish's stead, assisting in this dangerous battle by acting as bait. Having successfully met Lust's ambush as anticipated, although the results could only be described as a tragedy. But a collaborator was still a collaborator, and in the necessity of determining whether she had lived or died also resided a level of emotional obligation to Julius.
If, like me, she'd been directly crushed to death.
Looking around, he started the search in the nearby rubble. In the moment that the building had begun to collapse, Anastasia and Ferris had been in the same room together. As it had been a sudden collapse originating from beneath their feet, she would have ended up the same way provided she had been caught up in it without any preparation. At the very least, if she had not died instantaneously, as long as she could be subjected to Ferris's healing magic, she would be safe and sound.
This search would be much simpler with a single reply.
Ferris's slender arms were not suited for anything of the sort when it comes to search and rescue. Even if helping the injured was Ferris's very own specialty, Ferris was ill-suited for the work that lay before healing. Because of the lack of information received from Lust as well, Ferris felt an unprecedented sense of frustration. And it was precisely at that moment.
Ah, Ferris, you too are safe and sound.
Hearing the approaching sound of footsteps kicking away rubble, Ferris, having jumped as if startled, turned to see a solitary figure. Tugging on the hair that had been dyed green and straightened, smiling slightly, was the Anastasia he had been searching for all along. The hem of her kimono, which seemed difficult to move and swing, she approached Ferris with careful steps.
Anastasia-sama, are you unhurt?
It's as you can see. In fact, we here should be saying that. Ferris, thank goodness you're unhurt from that collapse.
That's...
Although strictly speaking, he had not been unhurt, Ferris suppressed his instinctive reply. There was no obligation to reply, and it would not merit a pleasant topic. Seeing Ferris closing his mouth without a reply, Anastasia surveyed the rubble and scene of collapse of the city hall.
Telling everyone to leave for the shelters in advance truly was a correct decision. This was quite the grand happening.
A grand happening.
Anastasia frowned as if incredibly troubled, and Ferris as well surveyed his surroundings. Anastasia calling this a grand happening. Was this a circumstance to be able to say so with peace of mind? Although calling it a grand happening was not incorrect, it felt as if missing a touch of seriousness. Not to mention that the cause of this collapse was precisely...
Seems to me that the cause would be the underground battle between Al and Lust. Being completely buried, digging them out like this would be a bit difficult. If they successfully entered the waterways underground, seems to me there'd be a possibility of escaping alive.
Of course, in that case, the possibility of Capella's survival also needed to be considered. As Ferris had observed, Capella's capacity for regeneration surpassed human imagination. Having had half her face destroyed by Anastasia's magic, she had not given any regards to that. It was truly beyond strange. Just like the outburst of Ferris's life force, it should not have been the result of some unnatural constitution.
Speaking of which, where did Anastasia-sama learn such magic?
Has it got anything to do with this?
Since I had heard you couldn't fight, a little bit of surprise can't be helped.
During the discussion on how to distribute the combat forces, she herself had been the one who had said she did not possess any combat ability. Neither Anastasia herself nor the artificial spirit accompanying her had such powers. However, if that was the case, what had been that magic, that which had ruined Capella's face?
This topic, I'd also like to hear a bit about it.
Anastasia kept silent in response to Ferris's question, and just at that moment, the voice of a third person chimed in. Before the eyes of the two who turned their heads stood Al, soaked and kicking away at rubble. Twisting his head so that water poured from the opening in his helmet, he approached.
Seeing you safe and sound's nice. A successful leap into the waterway?
On 3 times, I felt like I was gonna be crushed. It's not like it matters. More importantly, we've got something more important to talk about.
Anastasia faced forward to welcome the laborer's meritorious return, but Al unsheathed his blue dragon sword as he spoke. Pointing the tip of the blade to Anastasia as well, she frowned. Al and Anastasia stood facing each other, and Ferris was caught in between the two. The places where the three stood formed an exact triangle.
What in the world are you doing, exactly? If this is a joke, then I ain't laughing.
Not like I'm in a kidding mood. Setting aside that cat-eared bro for now, it really doesn't make sense that you survived this destruction. In addition...
It's merely that there were backup plans. Hiding those was indeed my fault, but as for that, I can't exactly explain it forthrightly.
Sure, you could give me that answer, but the problem here is your attitude. Barely managing to escape from the collapsed building, then chatting idly with familiar face atop the ruins? From your attitude, it feels like your expressions and feelings are completely out of place. Do you know what we call people who can chat like that?
Regarding Al, who persisted with his hail of questions, Anastasia stopped replying. However, her expression now froze into a sly smile. And then, as Ferris witnessed it, Al spoke a definitive, clarifying line.
Those kind of people, we call them witches.
Really now, that word is a little excessive.
An incredibly philosophical tone of response which gave the impression of being devoid of emotion. Sly smile failing away, what emerged afterward was an empty smile, a smile only in appearance. As if that movement of skin was directed not toward another person, but towards oneself in a self-deprecating manner.
In my experience, witch is by no means a term used in good conscience.
Could it be that you're under the impression that I'm lightheartedly dropping a greeting? Your first impression is right, swindler fox.
What do you mean?
Looking at the two people who had reached a level of common understanding, Anastasia, who had changed her tone, and Al, Ferris sought an opportunity to interject. In response to Ferris's attitude, Al shrugged with his armless left shoulder, his gaze still fixed in Anastasia's direction.
It's something like, the mist still looks like the mist, but she's different on the inside. That fox with wicked character dangling from her neck. Echidna's inside her.
This is something that prioritizes Anna's survival. It is just that the result ended up like this. It is really rather distressing that this affair is being spoken of as if I have some malicious intent.
At Al's hostile words, Anastasia, or Echidna rather, revealed a troubled expression as she replied, which made Al harumph into his helmet.
Someone replacing another shouldn't speak with such a righteous tone.
Replacing or whatnot is really quite the misunderstanding. From where did such a notion come from?
Right down to that fake Kararagi accent of yours. Pretending to that mist should serve as evidence. Unfortunately enough, I can see through the nature of a witch that can't comprehend humans.
Act a bit more properly. Like this, no matter how long you talk, the topic won't progress.
After Al's systematically detailed response to Echidna, Ferris finally exploded. Although it seemed that Al's information did have a degree of reliability, what mattered most right now was the affair of Anastasia's body. Her body right now had indeed been taken control of by Echidna.
That is not the case indeed. It would not do to have Anna healthy in body and soul. Because if that were the case, there would not be a need to use a forbidden technique.
Forbidden technique?
Refers to this condition here. Since Anna's gait is a little bit complex, it cannot be used by itself. Even with me acting as a proxy, the burden is still incredibly heavy.
Stroking her meager chest, Echidna made Anastasia's expression turn gloomy. Although Al still propped up his sword with a demeanor of intolerance, Felix forcibly stepped in front of the tip of the blade as he continued discourse with Echidna.
Then why did you pretend to be Anastasia-sama? To converse with us?
It is something like that. Would it not be more unnatural to abstain from a greeting upon seeing your ally safe and sound? Pretending to be Anna herself was to keep you from spotting our weakness. Exactly as I just said, Anna's body is quite unstable. So I wished to hide the fact that she had become one with me, and then was seen through too.
Julius is also unaware of this ability. After all, he had not even known about your existence before this. What do you intend to do about this?
That is an issue between Anna and Julius, and the Iron Fang as well. For your questions, I do not feel as if I have an obligation to offer speculation.
Everything made sense. The sense of incongruity that Felix had felt from Anastasia atop the mountain of rubble as well, all stemmed from dealing with Echidna. The contents were different. In addition to the fact that her magic had been her protection, was the fact that Anastasia's body had indeed been protected from the collapsing building. With these 2 points, Ferris's previous doubts had become undone. As Ferris had asked, Al clicked his tongue as he reluctantly placed the blue dragon sword within its sheath. Upon seeing this, Ferris once again looked at his bruised and battered body. Burns and scrapes. His body looked like it was truly injured.
Alright, let me take a look and it'll be healed soon. This place has been gouged. This slash, it's miraculous you didn't die from it.
With my ability, turning a fatal injury into a serious injury is the limit. That would be better if I hadn't lost the gamble. Well, whatever.
Huh?
The palm of Ferris, who tilted his head, healed all of Al's wounds. All that could be said was that, thanks to the healing properties of that pale blue light, in the blink of an eye, the numerous injuries on Al's body had been healed. Having confirmed this, Al gave Ferris his thanks.
Like me, the miss ended up surviving. And without a doubt, that lust bastard's also gotta be alive. I can't rest easy, even if she's been buried by rubble.
About that.
At Al's voice, which raised a warning, Echidna lifted her hand. The conversation mirror held in its palm. With her other hand, she gently knocked on its surface.
As a matter of fact, until the building had collapsed, the conversation mirror had stopped making a single sound.
I'd heard. Lust, or rather the witch cult. Within the witch cult, there seems to be a way of crippling magic devices. Presumably that suppressed communications with anyone on the outside.
That's what I had thought. However, if that was due to the Sin Archbishop that happened, it means we should have escaped that problem by now.
Talking in circles.
Apologies. It is a habit of mine. That is to say, the function of the conversation mirror has been restored.
Hearing those words, Al and Felix were simultaneously shocked. Al was surprised that the conversation mirror could reach others with a mirror, but Felix was surprised at the cause of the conversation mirror's malfunction, and the possibility that the cause had been eliminated altogether.
What do you mean? Lust interference ended? Which is to say she's dead?
Truly, it was unbelievable that the monster who had ceaselessly boasted of her regenerative abilities would have died from being buried by rubble. After all, just as Al had said, the 3 people present were all still alive. Believing that the undying monster with extraordinary vitality would die like this was truly too difficult. If any possibilities aside from this could be considered.
Receiving a wound to the point that its sabotage could not continue, or the interruption itself is meant to induce carelessness in us, and they're lurking, awaiting for an opportunity.
That doesn't feel like it fits with that awful character.
Indeed, I think so as well. Should be more daring than just hiding, such as taking the form of one of the 3 people here, with the original having already died, completely replacing that existence. That is precisely a tactic that Lust would enjoy.
The speculation of Echidna's caused Felix to shiver. He recalled that, before the collapse, the monster had assumed a form identical to Krush. Having witnessed that transformation with his own eyes, there was no room for doubt that she had been a fake. Of course, even if she had become Krush, Ferris was confident he would be able to see through her, but these two were another matter entirely. This possibility made Ferris feel ill. However,
Don't get your kicks from spouting such disorienting stuff. What a wicked nature. That lack of reaction makes it a quick deal. She turned tail and ran, that's clear. Leaving after becoming bored of playing? That one is just like that.
To say that without basis or reason?
Before being crushed, the monster wore completely a disinterested expression. That would be the reason.
The one who had faced off against Capella all the way to the end had been Al. If the opponent had been another human, such a confusion would have been astounding. But if their opponent were a Sin Archbishop, common sense could not be upheld. Of course, even assuming that, vigilance should not be dropped.
More importantly, if the conversation mirror is functional, couldn't contact with the princess be established? That's what's most important. Hurry up and help me connect.
The teams that had left the city hall with conversation mirrors had been Team Wilhelm and Garfield and Team Priscilla and Liliana. Originally, Al should have been part of Priscilla's squad, but at his master's order, he had reluctantly remained with the team left behind. The desire of wanting to confirm his master's safety was painfully understood.
I see. You do not need to be in such a hurry.
Just as Ferris glanced over, intending to ask what had happened upon seeing that reaction, the conversation mirror in Echidna's hand gradually began to radiate a faint glow. This was an indication that a connection with another conversation mirror had been established, and that which reflected on the surface of the conversation mirror was...
There you go. You guys caught up. Amazing. Now you can say it, Gold.
That's the chapter.
Yeah.
I think I'm a bit behind.
We did it.
Crud. Okay.
Boy, that
There we go.
last part reminded me of the hit game Among Us.
I don't know who that Felix voice actor was, but he was pretty bad. I think they should recast
I
him.
don't think you were bad at all.
Yeah, Gold, I agree.
Oh my
I
goodness.
think you were fantastic.
I'm kidding.
I'm gonna smack you, Matter. Schmack, schmack.
Ow.
Oh.
And
so,
that is chapter 61. What's the title of this chapter called again?
oh gosh.
Victim of the territory.
That's right, Pat.
Thank you, Pat. Somebody's paying attention.
I try.
You did great.
All right. Well, how did everyone who liked the chapter, people who are hearing it from the first time in this call, is there anybody?
Me. That was amazing. I think my favorite part of this chapter is when Al calls out Echidna for being a swindler fox, and the music peaks right there perfectly. It was perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. That one was a lucky hit.
Yep.
Compared to Echidna with Felix looking like a girl. Can't believe this guy.
Can't believe. Yeah, while editing, I should have read it ahead of time. I didn't realize until an hour before we were gonna release everything that Al was in the end of the chapter. And so I was all of a sudden like, oh god, where's the rest of Hero's audio? Thankfully he had it. I was just a fool. So, yeah, we got it in there. But yeah, I was shocked this morning to find that Al was with Anna and Ferris.
So such a threatening Sin Archbishop with all this boast and whatnot didn't even injure all three of them, because all three of them uniquely had their own sort of regenerative capability. I think it's kind of, I don't use this term loosely, but it's sort of ironic that she was the one that they went up against, because, like, sure, it was their tactic as well, but it's like, they are the most survivable out of the three people, out of the three of the group, you know?
Literally, like cockroaches.
And all of them would just like fight forever and ever without accomplishing anything, pretty much. Because Felix can like resurrect himself, and then like everybody else is just taking no damage. So
Anastasia has all that spirits and shenanigans and stuff.
She really did.
Yeah, I was surprised by that when Echidna was in control.
We still don't know.
Yeah, it's
That came out of nowhere. My gob fell to the floor. I wasn't expecting that now.
Oh, that's right, Pat. You weren't aware of that. Okay, how do you
Yeah,
feel about it?
I don't read, so don't read. I'm an illiterate fool.
No.
I thought that was... I wasn't expecting that at all. That came out of nowhere. I was very surprised. And I was like, where is this going to go now? I thought they were gonna fight, but then really good dialogue sort of diverges from a fight, and it's just a real interesting conversation between people. And but it's just I'm more curious about characters now, because it's implied that Anastasia has something wrong with her, that she's not fully in control with her body.
Correct. And there's a lot of mysteries abound, more and more. Nobody saw that she was a dragon, which I think is very funny. She takes the form and they just don't even recognize that she did it. They're kind of like, oh, is she dead or not? But nobody even saw what exactly happened.
Girl, where you at?
They saw her fly into the estate, or was that only Garf and a few other
I think
people?
only the people who went for the first attack saw
Yeah, the
her
first attack.
flying.
Yeah. So Subaru probably saw it, right?
Yeah, so only was the only one there who would have seen it. Oh no, Al wouldn't have seen it either.
Yeah, that's why they didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, excuse me? Huh? You're a dragon? Nani? I also didn't realize Capella turned into a wolf. But I really should have read this chapter. I was just going for let's get these lines done. Really bad approach. I would have added an effect to the wolf voice as well.
Yeah, it's so weird because Kylie turns into a wolf. She's wolf right now, as we can see by the
one brain cell.
Exactly.
I read that 2 years ago or something. I completely forgot about that.
She's just a little shapeshifter.
Yeah.
What do you guys
Wait,
think of the...
Wait, did she turn into a wolf, or did she turn her arm into a wolf?
I think it was her head.
Her arm.
Yeah,
No, she made her hands.
It was her arm. It was her arm.
I thought it was her head.
No,
she tried to bite
two
them.
wolves.
There's two wolves inside you.
One of them's your arm, one of them's your head.
What?
Yeah.
Her name is Capella.
Jesus, I'm so confused.
Hold on.
I need to go and re-listen to this.
No, we have the chapter.
Got the tapes.
Got the tapes.
Got the receipts.
I will be editing this with Matter.
And it's a lot of more of the same concepts, right? So we got Capella here. She's just gloating, taunting, all that stuff. It's kind of funny that I think Al is just such a loser that he doesn't even care.
Such a loser.
He most people would be probably offended. We saw how flustered Ferris got. We saw how flustered Anastasia got when she was in control of her body. But they were all having a really bad time. Al just doesn't even really care. He's into that. So that was his defense. He was uniquely equipped to deal with the situation, and he did it
uniquely.
And he's also he's pretty powerful. We gotta give it up to him. Whenever we see a character fight with a Sin Archbishop, we usually judge their strength pretty accurately from then on. We see how hard it was for even Reinhardt to kill Greed, though that was a unique circumstance. Yeah. Unique circumstance.
I think it was suggested that Al was able to tell what was going to happen in the battle, as if he knew what moves were coming next. Was that implied?
Yes.
Yep, it was implied.
Yeah. I picked up on that too.
Is he seeing a few seconds into the future or something?
Maybe.
It's or is he just really good at reading people and then just
Well, he mentioned at
So-
one point a territory.
Like the name of the chapter. I see what he's doing.
Oh.
Yeah. Also, update. It was her right arm that turned into a wolf.
Oh. I thought he just got
It was
big.
her arm. Aha.
I knew.
I'm not going mad.
I knew I heard
Thank
that
you,
right.
Pat. You're not Pat gone mad. Thank you.
Oh, jeez.
What have you done with Pat then?
Pat gone insane.
That wasn't intentional.
I did want to say two things. One, I am just curious what you guys thought of, I think that's Cynics 13, the theory that Felix can only die 9 times. I don't know, he's a cat, cat boy.
Makes sense, yeah.
To be honest, that'd be the type of shit to pay would write. I believe it.
Yeah,
and then
I can believe he'd do it.
Yeah, Felix is crazy.
He is crazy.
Felix is the strongest water magic user in the world. Every other attribute of magic is all taken by Roswell, but only Felix has water.
Divine protection of big kitty energy.
Of the main four, I think.
Yeah, the main four. Yeah.
And then Ally did a really good job of Echidna. That was pretty.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. That was an incredible delivery.
she really elevated herself a bit more here. I really enjoyed that.
Her
The
process
shift in
was so
personality.
cool. Yeah.
Mm.
She remembered it from when Hollow talked to her about it like a year ago, because they've been prepping it for a while. And so she's like, yeah, I really tried to play up the Kararagi accent, and then I just kind of listened to like Echidna and just kind of went for her vibe afterwards. And I was like, amazing, thanks, this is perfect.
Perfect.
Great. No help needed. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Is she still voice acting?
Yeah, she was just sick for a while, and then I offered if she wanted a break from this chapter. She's like, no, I'm Anastasia. No.
I'm in. Locked in.
She's still in it. I think
Well,
all of our voice actors are still with us, for those who are here now, and then I think some of them are done with voice acting, but not with Reverie, which is nice. It's good to see. Almost everyone wanted a commercial, so that's something.
That is.
We're all greedy people.
Greedy, gluttonous.
I think, honestly, I think my favorite part of the chapter is the and it's not the God. I'm tired. Sorry. I honestly just really like the Echidna Anastasia thing. That's probably my favorite part of the chapter. I really not like I don't like Capella and Aldebaran's dialogue, but I see it's more intriguing in my opinion.
Whatever.
Yeah. The voice acting was the worst part. The dialogue itself. The
Why are we
dialogue
even
itself
here?
is fun, in my opinion. I like the conversation between Ferris and them more.
It's kind of interesting how like attentive and adept Aldebaran is, like, to catch on to the fact that Anastasia was a fake in some way.
Yeah, he was immediately able to tell. He called it out perfectly. He was like, "You're like a witch." You're like, "Yeah." And you know,
He's a perceptive man.
I tend to find, I don't know if other people agree with this, but Al definitely is someone that knows a lot more than he lets on.
for sure, yeah. In a lot of ways, like he talks down on himself all the time. I think it's sort of on purpose, but it's also just
it's not even
a lazy thing, right? He's a lazy, strong person. You know?
It's not even the mental of him, like believing he's bad. He wants people to underestimate him as much as
Exactly, yeah.
Because he knows that will give him the most advantage in any situation he's in. It's why he does. I don't know if you guys remember this, but like even during the Royal Selection event in Arc 3, he's the one that helps Subaru by saying, "Can you please explain the Royal Selection? Because I'm dumb."
Yeah.
He's the most mild-mannered, yeah.
Never let him know your next move.
I feel like his personality naturally fits into what he tries to do, in terms of like how other people he wants other people to perceive him. I don't feel like he's like ding every time he speaks. It feels like he's truly a laid-back person, which plays into it nicely, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's also the fact that like he's smart enough to know how to act like dumb enough so that people don't think that he's just acting dumb enough. You know what I mean? Like it's that sort of thing where he's like has a very selfish pursuit. Obviously, he very much like likes Priscilla. I think that, you know, this is just my speculation, that he like is truly just a simp for Priscilla, like through and through, and that's like his life. He's like, okay, this is my life now. I'm enjoying it. Like who really cares about anything else? You know, that really seems like the character that he has.
I do find it interesting that Al and Subaru could have like two separate approaches to how they tackled this world. In the sense of Subaru is going through all of the game flag events. He's triggering all the big events. He's all there in all the big things that happen. And Al's just like, yeah. So if I can't be here, that'd be great. But if I will be here, I will try my hardest to not do anything.
It's why Al's not the main character.
Yeah, not worth it, man. Just lay down, do nothing.
Because he's so reluctant.
Al's just like me.
And you can very much tell if he had the ability to not be in this fight right now, he definitely would not.
Yeah, he picks and chooses his fights for sure. I kind of want to know what the criteria is between when he inserts himself into a situation and when he doesn't, or when he wants to and when he doesn't want to.
I definitely feel like he has way more involvement in the plot than I think people initially thought. I think he's got way more going on behind the scenes.
I mean, yeah, without actually saying what it is, I think one of the Q&As kind of confirmed that. But yeah, it's just taking so long for him to get involved. I could see why people would kind of just like forget, honestly.
Waiting on you to pay.
I do like that is actually like consistent with his character though. The reason why it's taken him so long to get involved directly with the story is because he's not had any place to be forced into it.
Yeah, he's not going and doing things on his like. He's not an active role, which is.
He's very much a reactive person.
Yeah.
A bizarre JoJo fan was saying, as someone who hasn't read my fave part, was the implication about Al's powers and how he knows Echidna's name? He did know Echidna's name right off the bat. He was just like, yeah.
He did?
He did, and he knew that she was a witch.
Yeah.
I did not notice he knew her name.
Yeah, he knew.
What the hell?
Yeah, he full on name dropped. I think we were talking right over that part in our chat. So that would make sense.
He's a spooky man.
Yeah, he's definitely seen some shit.
It might imply now that he actually maybe does see part of the future so that he could react with the name.
Well, you know, it's funny. I think in other cultures around the ReZero world, the Witch of Greed is the only witch that is like known by name, besides Satella, that people still talk about to this day because Kararagi was formed by, what's her face, Echidna. So, like that entire country knows that, all the stuff that Echidna's done. So
didn't Regulus destroy an entire city?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Yes.
In what's it called? The other place.
Yeah.
Someplace down
Regulus
south.
is so unassuming, I think, that.
What was that?
If I remember correctly, they just attributed it to the witch cult as a whole because
the
Regulus
witch cult
is so...
in quotes is a thing that exists.
Yeah. God, what was I gonna say? Pat, following up on your line of thought with Thing in the future, I am curious on what you think, because what you brought up is kind of an interesting concept about it. Is you said he knew her name because he saw into the future. He could possibly see into the future by a few 4 or 5 something seconds. Do you think he would see his own dialogue, as in like his own speech 4 or 5 seconds in the future?
I'm thinking of this more so as he maybe can perceive certain futures. So like if he's thinking he's going to do it a certain way, he sees what happens maybe in those 4 or 5 seconds. So maybe if he accuses her, he sees how she responds in maybe several different ways. And then she let maybe slip that it's Echidna. But that's my theory.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think, another thing is Echidna herself talks about how she puts herself in artifacts, in all these different things. Like, we know that about her. Like, through, the tea time and her, like, artifacts and Roswell talking about it. Like, it's not, like, a secret. So, like, I wouldn't be surprised if you see something that looks like an artifact left by a witch, it's easy to assume that it's Echidna's doing, right?
Yeah.
And on that note, I'm gonna step away now, guys. I'm gonna grab myself some Echidna tea.
Enjoy that juicy tea.
That sounds delightful.
We love having you here.
Can you make me some of that tea?
Yeah.
I'd like some of that tea, please.
I'm gonna kill the apostle. Agreed.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kanda.
And if I remember, it was a side story that was put out between arc 4 and 5 that talked about what's the Ryuzu's name?
Omega?
Yeah. Yeah. Is it Omega?
Yes.
You mean the original name or?
No.
new one?
No.
It's Omega.
The
You mean
there's
Ryuzu Mayor?
there's I'm trying to remember if it was a side story or if it was a full interlude, talking about you know what I'm talking about. Can I talk about this? You think?
It's content, right? If it was between 4 and 5, or like right at the end of 4.
Well, there's a Sphinx and then there's an Omega, and those are really the only two kind of.
I think I'm thinking of Sphinx.
Yes, Sphinx.
Yeah, Sphinx.
That was never mentioned in like.
It was mentioned in arc 5
Not
in
in-
passing, but
Yeah.
So it's mentioned when talking about the war, but what happened between arc 4 and 5 was not what was cut, or I think it was side story only.
They're interludes, right? So they're not really side story.
Yeah,
You can basically call it main story.
So Kidna is still out there, but
Yes.
even
No, no, that's Omega. That's 100% Omega.
Really?
Yeah, no,
Yes,
Omega's the one that
that
Echidna's
is
in.
110%
Yes.
Omega.
I was gonna say Sphinx is like not like really.
Sphinx is
Yeah.
related to EX stuff, and she's mentioned in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I have only read EX4, so
That sounds trouble.
I didn't read the rest
okay,
of them.
okay, so this echidna that's inside Anastasia is like, I know it was stated that she wasn't the echidna that I was about to say Wolf, but Subaru knew.
Yeah.
But I thought it was implied here that she was the echidna that did know. But
Well,
now
that's her name, and it's like
Yeah.
you know, it's part of a part of Echidna in quotes. So that's
As far as we know, the only relation to the real Echidna is the name.
This is also
Okay.
a big thing. Is that this is alluded to in arc 4? I think even in the anime, it's mentioned by Ryuzu that Echidna tried multiple experiments to make herself immortal.
Yeah.
So it's possible that
So-
this is a part of her.
Very much possible. Like all of these different attempts, they've all probably failed in their own.
Or a
ways.
clone.
But you know, she could be a result of that. Very much.
It's also good to keep in mind. Tepe did flat out say that the different versions of her we see can be considered different characters. They are not one
Yeah,
and the
different
same character.
personalities. Yeah, they're not right.
So they're not all going to be one specific thing. They could be split.
I very much got the impression that they came off different stages of Echidna's life.
Mm-hmm.
Like what they were built upon, like their personalities and such. So
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
not all the same person exactly.
Mm-hmm. Well,
it's gonna be so confusing
yeah.
when there's more than one echidna talking at the time.
That's why
gonna
they
be
all get given
echidna
separate
said to
names.
echidna that echidna
I hope to
is...
God they never
That's-
meet. I hope to
that's
God
why-
they
that's
never
why we
meet.
have Scarlet.
Thank you, both of our VAs, for being two echidnas.
yeah, good old Echidna. I think she's gonna be a huge in-game player personally. I don't know how all three of these are gonna or all three, however many there are. I don't know how they're gonna converge together, but I think she's gonna be one of the main in-game players. So I'm interested to see how this all comes together personally.
Especially since there was more than one Echidna in the sanctuary, like the one that was actually buried and the one that was in the tea party. They're different somehow. That shit just makes me annoyed. It's confusing. Just make them one.
So
Well,
many
you see,
echidnas.
that'd be too easy.
I agree. I forgot what I keep forgetting. I'm sorry. Never mind.
Okay.
Oh yeah, sometimes I forget what I'm forgetting.
It was
too,
something about Capella, and then that was
Hello, all you meat creatures.
Meat
Oh God.
I
Did that
did
jog your memory?
I did want to bring up one thing actually, and I looked this up to double check that I didn't misremember, but I think considering it's kind of relevant to the chapter and Al's ability, I think we could talk a bit about like the star Aldebaran.
Yeah.
Go for it, astrology.
I'm to
Major.
Google this.
So, Aldebaran is like, I believe, the brightest star in the Taurus constellation, if I remember correctly,
Yep.
which is like the bull constellation. And it follows the Pleiades, which is also known as Subaru in Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, the fact that they're their powers could be somewhat, time related and related to each other is a very big possibility if you have that sort of connection. It's almost as if, he's following. He's following almost like following the Pleiades Subaru, almost watching over, like waiting.
Yeah, or it could be more literal, and anybody in the Subaru constellation is in this world. Anybody has a name that's like Subaru constellation. All those stars are in this world.
Oh, it seems like Aldebaran in Arabic literally means the follower.
Yeah.
It does.
And he does simp for Priscilla, so he is a follower.
Yep.
He definitely follows.
My queen.
Yeah, he follows in the right way. Yeah.
Wolf, I am curious to see what you think about this without spoiling too much, or spoiling it all, actually. Do you think the role of a follower plays into the difference between Aldebaran and Subaru's power set?
I very much would agree with that. Because Owl's power is definitely reactive in some way. With the way Subaru's power works, he has to be very active in how he uses it. Owl's power seems like it's an actual combat power, but more defensive. Subaru's is like almost an investigative power. I wouldn't exactly call it but it's a power that would only work if he's involved in situations where it would trigger.
Right.
And to do that, he has to be active in events and stuff going on.
Because we see in Sloth, for example.
Yeah, it's very much the idea that Subaru, because obviously all of the ifs are Tapei describing as what would happen if Subaru made a wrong decision. So even if he's somewhat happy in some of these ifs, they are considered to be the wrong decision by Tapei for Subaru to make.
It's only wrong because it doesn't go with Amelia. Lol.
Ayo.
Retweet.
But it very much speaks to me to the idea that that is kind of a big thing that separates them. Is Al is a follower. He's not someone that likes to take an active role in things. Subaru, and from their conversations, from what I can understand, Al used to allude to the fact that maybe he wasn't as much of as a follower before all the stuff that happened to him happened. And it seems like Al is noticing that Subaru's taking a very different path to what he has.
Right.
And I think that difference was stated for a reason.
Yeah, and Al usually, even his advice to Subaru is keep your head down. Don't worry, just go with the flow. That's always what he says to Subaru, no matter what. So it makes sense that he's that influence in Subaru's life that's trying to make him doubt things.
But Subaru is very much. It's also thematically relevant because a lot of the baggage that for Subaru comes from the old world. So it makes sense that someone else from there would do the same thing to him. Like thematically, be the one that somewhat holds him back or tries to say, okay, wait a second. But Subaru's someone that sees like a lot of injustice. Whenever he does see injustice, he tries to fight against it. He's very much a person that can't sit still when something's going on. Like for instance, the stuff with Heinkel, Wilhelm and Reinhard earlier. He was just a person that couldn't contain his anger in that situation. It's not because he's a bad person or he's immature exactly. It's because he can't ignore injustice.
He himself could not stop. Like even he said, I don't care about doing this on behalf of anybody. I'm doing this for myself because I see the injustice and I want to act against it.
Exactly. Because it's not exactly that he's like it's a selfless hero thing. Even it's just his own selfish desire of I cannot see wrong in front of me and do nothing about it. And that's the big difference between him and Al. Al is not necessarily a bad person, from what we can understand of him.
He's just a mega virgin.
He's one mega virgin, correct. I mean, he literally says that in the chat. Can confirm.
Just like me.
Ayo. One of.
Yay!
Like me for real.
But I like how Tapei very much alludes to the differences in these characters and how they're still relevant to each other and they're still important to each other's stories, but how they're taking different paths.
You gotta wonder how he was before he showed up.
Yeah, this
Kinda
is the
interesting.
thing that interests me the most, honestly. I want to know what happened to Al.
Correct. I think, judging by his personality, I think a lot of people tried to hold him back most of his life, and it's gotten to him to the point where he just doesn't believe in his own abilities, or even if he does understand his abilities, he's not going to use it for anybody but himself. You know what I mean?
And it's Subaru kind of, it's weird because the way, especially in how he comes to the conclusion of how to use his powers in Arc 4, like you use every bit of it until there's nothing left, even though it's kind of stated to be limitless. He almost, because he's selfish too, it's almost the same line of thinking, but just slightly different.
Well, he does go back on that.
Oh yeah, he does. But I'm talking about like the root of what he thinks about everything. Like, obviously he moves on from that sort of attitude and understands that he should not be using his life as a tool.
You know what? I just thought about something. I think Al's power is thematically relevant as well, because I think he's the type of person who tries to avoid pain, where Subaru came to a lot of realization by trudging through the pain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's
So it makes
overcome
sense.
a lot of his problems through going through that pain, whereas Al is someone that seems very, not like he's weak or anything, because he's definitely experienced and he's gone through a lot and he's strong, but he
Yeah,
likes
I think
to
it's-
avoid pain as much as possible.
I think it's exactly right, because Al is capable of good things, of great things, right? But his fear, perhaps, of what he can't do is holding him back from unleashing his true potential. You know what I mean?
He's also described as somewhat middle-aged, right? Like,
Yeah. So his entire life he's done this. Yeah.
They're straight up his character design. Like, it's pretty much confirmed that the character design that got leaked from White Fox, like in 2016, is actually what he looks like. Like, straight up, he looks fairly middle-aged. Yeah, no, because in the newer light novels, you get to see illustrations of not his face, but his hair, and it matches up perfectly with. Yeah. So he's like 40, probably, something like that.
Yeah, and that would probably explain a lot of stuff, because
40-year-old virgin.
you know,
And it
he-
also
he's
just
in a
proves-
similar situation to Subaru. He's been in this world for a long time.
Yeah.
At least 2 decades, right? So
I'd assume so, around there. I mean, he very clearly got himself into a high position, and I don't think he did that. Well, I know how he did that, right? But he's been there for a long time, so yeah, feel kind of sorry for him, honestly. His life.
There's I just want to mention this because I think it was mentioned like 2 or 3 times. But they talk about his sword, the blue dragon sword, I believe is what it was called,
right,
or something along those lines. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because it was mentioned a few times. It feels like this is an important weapon.
I feel like a lot of the weapons the main characters and side characters carry are like kind of important, to be honest with you.
But like I don't remember Julius having his sword named quite
He
as
doesn't.
frequently.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's
Agreed.
the only other person that I can think of is like Reinhardt's sword, but that's because his sword is literally the sword.
Yeah,
Yeah, like the only significant sword names I can think of, obviously, the Dragon Sword, the
the Yang sword.
Actually, no. Wait, has the Yang Sword been mentioned yet?
No.
Probably should lay off that.
Well, it's I think that it's on the list that has come out of the 10 swords.
It is.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Then
yeah,
there's the-
supplementary material. Yeah.
Then there's the Blue Giant Sword, and literally everyone else, I'm pretty sure, has unnamed weapons, like also Wilhelm and probably. I was gonna say Therese. Actually, never mind. Yeah, Wilhelm's swords are unnamed, and also Julius's swords are unnamed.
Yeah, it's nice world building that there's like these named weapons out there that strong people possess that perhaps do something unique in of themselves. We know that the Dragon Sword Raid has its own unique properties. This sword probably does as well. It's named after a dragon as well, so that's interesting to think about.
I think
who
it's-
dragon is it named after? Who knows?
I think it's interesting that actually the knights, as far as we know, don't have specialized weapons aside from the sword saint. Pretty much everyone else, like the ragtag, like Aldebaran. He's ragtag, let's be honest. But
Yeah.
like they have their own unit. But like the knights, they're pretty uniform. They don't really have
It very
anything
much feels
special.
like I get the impression from the knights that they're less actual knights from what we'd understand of like medieval times. Of course, they come from nobility and such, but they very much seem like special forces to me more than anything. Like
Yeah.
Right.
understanding.
You dispatch the knights to take care of this or that problem.
And
Yeah,
You don't
like
fight them
armies
for
are like the mercenaries, if anything.
Hold
Like,
on.
They are the
like,
CIA. They're the Black Ops.
Yeah, like the ones who fought in Arc 3, I think were more
Iron Fang.
akin them, and then the people that that Krush brought along, I think are more like a normal army rather than the knights of Lagunica.
I was wondering about that. The people that were under Cruise, were those like her personal army or something brought in from like the
Yeah,
government?
it's a personal army. She has.
Yeah, it's personal.
It's mentioned. It's like almost a paramilitary force. It's because they're all the majority of the old ones that came to help are all veterans that have like lost
Of
people
the-
in the Vale.
Yeah.
So, but they were all definitely knighted at some point, from what we can tell.
Also, I have a grudge against the Lagunican government. Get this right. They haven't been able to track down the witch cult for years on end, and they've been just causing havoc everywhere. And the only main appearances they get are regarding the Amelia Cap, and then you just don't keep tabs on them.
Well, they cause havoc elsewhere.
But like, they've noticed like in the past like what, year and a half or so, they've been just messing with the Amelia Cap and they just don't notice.
Well, no, I think the problem is they do notice. This
They
is the thing.
don't care.
They don't
I think.
care.
Well,
Probably
they
don't care.
they cared ever since they kidnapped the royal family bloodline, right? So
Yeah.
that was the big thing that people in that country know and care about. The witch cult for.
It is mentioned in Arc 3 by Rem and Subaru that the reason why they can't get the help from the official government when the witch cult attacks the immediate camp is because they give false reports from people from inside the capital to diverge the government. So the government refuses to act because they get so many of these anonymous tips about where the witch cult's going to attack.
Kind of also feel like it's a little bit of laziness, like not laziness per se, but it really seems like they could take action.
Well,
But
also
here-
because some people are prejudiced against elves.
Yeah, no, we're not gonna help the elf camp.
I just mean like in general, honestly. And I understand it's like the ReZero world. What makes it interesting, in my opinion, and I think Kyle's brought this up, is that it's so full of distractions. It's such a lively world that they don't really have time to always think about all this stuff.
Yeah,
which
this is-
I also like. So I understand that part
Yeah,
as
I
well.
also
You got like four
I think we
nations,
also
witch
get-
beast.
We get a lot of allusions to the fact that the reason why Lagunica is in such big trouble right now is because it's also an economic crisis, right, and a political
Yeah.
crisis. Lagunica is on the brink of like destruction, like almost on the same level as the demi-human war. Obviously, we're not to the point of armed conflict or anything.
Well, the country itself has always been teetering on the brink of collapse. And the only thing that ever saved it was the pact with the dragon that threatened other outside forces from not attacking them. They would be in constant turmoil if that wasn't the case. They have no good family line that's been wiped out. They fought in wars that completely devastated their population. They, unjust wars, as we know, but like all these different things have accumulated in the fact that, like until you get this new ruler, it's mismanaged, it's old, it's stuck in its own ways, it's.
Yeah, we see it from a lot of like the Wise Man Council in Arc 3, right? Is that the government very much seems incompetent and corrupt. Obviously, there's some people that are obviously actually working for the interest of the nation, but there's quite a few nobles there that definitely are corrupt and are not interested in the nation's preservation as much as they are their own goals. And it very much, I think, speaks to why kind of like Felt's declaration at the end of that
Felt needs to win
thing is so important. Because Felt is literally talking about reworking the entire system from the ground up.
I think she just wants to. I don't remember her saying rework. I think she just wants to tear it down, and she said she wants to bring a little fresh air into the country.
Yeah,
I don't think she meant reworking.
What I mean by rework, as in like she wants to tear it down and then bring fresh air.
Well, the adults in the room will do the actual part of it.
But
Yeah.
She
just wants to destroy.
She wants to be the moving force to like destroy what is currently there.
Yeah.
Which I think is why a lot of that was set up the way it is. But I very much get the impression, because imagine it from like a noble's perspective, whether you're corrupt or not. In that situation, you have a half-elf as a candidate for the throne. You have someone who is actually a real proper standing in the Gunican nobility, but wants to go away with the Pact of the Dragon, the thing that has kept this country together for like 400 years. And then you have a merchant from a foreign country, and someone that is from the slums, and then you have someone that's just super arrogant,
and they also don't quite know where she's from.
And they don't know too much about her. And so if you think of it from the nobility's perspective, or even the people's perspective, because I think this is a thing that's somewhat mentioned in Arc 3 when Subaru's talking to like the Appa salesman Kadamon, and he's talking about the candidates, is the idea like all of these, a lot of these people are underdogs or people that feel foreign to the people of the Gunica, especially Emilia. So there's probably a lot of unrest going on. Because I mean, like, if you think about it, Krush would probably be the favorite candidate of the people.
That's true, but you gotta remember that people think that she's pretty much cursed their entire family line.
Oh yeah, but that's also what I was going on to say, is that she's also saying that we need to do away with the Pact of the Dragon. Which,
exactly.
The country is kind of like falling apart at the seams.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, Lagunica isn't exactly like liked in
by
general.
other countries, no.
I don't think they're really liked around the world.
To be fair, all the other countries in the world have its own unique set of problems, as we're kind of alluding to.
Also ties in the Sword Saint, right? The Sword Saint is like their nuclear weapon.
Yeah, but other countries have their own nuclear weapon.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like, it's a real tense situation. I really like how Capella set up this world, because it very much feels like he could take it in whatever direction he wants. Of either, okay, we tackle the main stuff in the Gunica, or we have like almost like a war situation between countries. It's crazy how well he set up the ability to make that so flexible, especially for a character like Subaru who can influence so many events with the stuff he does. I really like how he set up the fact that there are so many consequences to all the actions the characters take in this world.
Well, can I mention that? The fact that he alluded to the fact that we might get an extra arc because of recent developments in the story.
Basically, the way he's writing the current story.
Yeah, where he's going to do more stuff I believe outside of Lagunica, which is very cool. But I think Wolf's absolutely right, and I think that Tepe has sort of realized it, especially just through writing side stories. I think he has realized that he can expand this more, which I'm excited to see where it goes. But I think that Arc 5, especially having all these people together from different areas, I think is kind of a stepping point to kind of show like the directions things can go.
Yeah, I agree.
Can I bring up another point of Al that has just been niggling at the back of my mind?
Of course.
He wasn't affected by the Black Blood.
Wait, was he touched by it?
Like he said he just didn't bother to avoid it.
Yeah, that's what he said. He didn't bother to avoid it. I was wondering that too.
I'm pretty maybe that was like misworded. I'm pretty sure he did at least didn't touch him.
No,
I thought it like there was other points where he stabs the sword in and like he's actually in the blood for a second. Like maybe I just misheard, but it to me it sounded like he was touched by the blood and he just didn't care.
Well, this is maybe an interesting thing to bring up then. If Al has a power like that, right, it's likely he has some sort of witch factor, right? It's very likely to be an authority, right? Speculation-wise,
Yeah, because what he says is that he has the ability to turn a life-threatening injury into a not life-threatening injury. Now that's what he says. If that's actually his power, we don't have that confirmed. But that is what he says at the end, towards the end of the chapter.
And we've seen that Subaru seems less affected by the blood when he tries to absorb it from Krush and such. So perhaps maybe people with witch factors are affected differently by the blood. Obviously, it's not going to be the exact same way for each person. I assume it's also based on some other factors. But perhaps,
or maybe just the Japanese can take the blood.
Hey, yo, special resistance.
They can't. A lot of them can't handle alcohol, but dragon blood, hell yeah.
It's kind of weird that like everyone that has been transported to this world has been Japanese. Like, what's the odds? Like, what are the odds of that happening?
I genuinely think that is for a reason, though, that I think will be explained at some point, is the thing I'm...
Yeah.
From what I can tell, I have loads of theories of, like, the origin of ReZero's world, but it very much seems to me that there is a reason why it's only Japanese people that are being isekai'd. That we know of, at least.
What do you think about the, do you think the world is, oh wait, I don't know if we have actually covered that, never mind. I'm just not gonna say it just in case.
We could talk about it after stream.
I'm kind of bad with spoilers, to be honest. I should just shut up.
I'm sure nobody would mind.
I just always forget like whether it's a side story that is pre-arc 4 or pre-arc 5 or post-arc 5.
Yeah, it's not that I like don't remember like, or it's not that I like have an issue with like remembering when something took place. It's more like, did it take place in a side story that it hasn't been covered, or like it's just like the side con. I'm just like, whoops, I hope I didn't ruin something.
Yeah.
So I'll pass on that. I'll ask your opinion on it after.
Yeah, my rule is always if it's side stories that happen before this, you just have to clarify that it's from a side story.
Ow.
Yeah, I just need to stretch.
Or I think there are a few things that get mentioned later, so I don't mention those anymore because it gets mentioned main story later. So I'm like, either you go and find it yourself or.
Well, this chapter is pretty cool. Doesn't help that half of it was kind of just like banter and talking and stuff. Well, more than half of it, so not really a whole lot to talk about. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a good chapter. I think it's a good introductory section.
In your body.
I really enjoy this chapter. I like the character interactions. I like the implications for the world at large and for even like just Owl himself and all of the mysteries surrounding him. I think it's a really nice way to introduce all of that to the main story. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the chapter.
Yeah.
I forgot how good the dialogue was in ReZero. It's ridiculously good.
For sure.
Most of the time. Most of the time it's great,
yeah. So used to trash anime that like this is just gold.
Yeah, undeniably, no matter how frustrated we get with some of the repetitiveness or whatever, or like the overly flowery language, the ReZero just so well written compared to a lot of different things that it is really refreshing to see so much thought and effort go into each and every character throughout, the run of the series, and it consistently does so. You can always rely on it to be like that. Where in some series you're just like, well, maybe this character that I like will just not be thought about again. In ReZero, it's like, no, you're gonna get everything that you ever wanted with this character and more. Don't worry about it. We like building up the mystery and writing the lore and doing world building as much as you do. And that's something that I always admire about Tepe, is his commitment to doing that. People kind of rag on him sometimes, but I think that it's unfair considering how much he has spinning on his plates. Like, he really does encompass everything into his world, and he really puts his entire soul into it. So that's something that I really admire about him as an author.
Yeah, I
well,
say,
go ahead.
If I was in his position as a writer at this point, considering he's been writing ReZero for what, 10 years now?
11, actually, maybe.
Yeah. And especially considering how much content he puts for it and how little other work he does, I would be dead by writer's fatigue at this point.
Yeah.
And for free, pretty much.
Yeah.
And for free. That really sucks. The light novels would have such better sales if their web novel didn't exist. unfortunately.
He
Not like
seems
they're
like
bad.
Whilst
like
true, Tapei does seem like a very much a person that really does appreciate all the people that got him to that point. I think the reason why he is like the way he is with the web novel and continuing it as it is because he very much understands that the reason he's in the position he is now is because of the people that helped him along the way in the web novel stuff. Tapei very much seems like a person that's, even though he's a troll and he's a bit of a funny man, he seems like a person that's very grateful for the things that he's got.
He's also seems like a creator that creates for other creators. I think he's a very rare case. Whereas most people try to gatekeep because they want to, make their money, which is totally valid too. But he kind of makes it to a way that it's super accessible.
He just wants to help other people with his art. I think that's something that you could definitely see.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and he's flat out said he takes inspiration from like other authors. Like obviously, but some authors don't admit that. But like he pretty openly states that he likes to take inspiration.
I think through his writing, you can tell how honest he is as a person because ReZero as a story is very honest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very down to earth and sincere.
Yeah,
Where other like series would get too fluffy or too like power fantasy, whatever. There's something very sincere about ReZero that really resonates through.
Because I don't know how much of Tapei is in Subaru. I can never assume that unless he speaks about it later. I think maybe he will speak more on that as the series ends, possibly. But he very much aims the story for like someone in Subaru's position of maybe like a teenage boy or just a teenager who's very recluse and doesn't like and struggles through mental health things, and obviously the way it's slanted in Japan, he has to approach it from that angle. But I feel like it very much is a story with the intention of actually saying something, no matter how much of a troll Tapei is and how much he doesn't like.
He loves to kill Subaru.
He doesn't, and how much he loves to make Subaru suffer. Yeah, but
Spoilers: Subaru dies.
But I do like that Tapei very much seems to be wanting to do something with ReZero. It's not more just I'm writing a story for a story's sake. I am trying to say something with this, and I think he's succeeding in what he's trying to say.
Yeah. Something I wanted to bring up, Gold. You were talking about how Tapei really likes to. He's giving all of his characters a chance. And I feel like this is gonna be really off topic. It's just for like one sentence though. I think a problem I had. So there's ReZero in the Six Sound out of Nowhere and One Piece. One Piece is such a large story, but one of the bigger criticisms I have of it is that some of these characters get cast aside for a very long time as soon as they're done with their arc. And Tapei actually recently came out and said in his 10th anniversary Q&A that he is open to going to the other countries now, rather than just staying in, so that will bring in even more time for some of these other people. Because if you delve into, let's just say Karadagi, right? If you go to Karadagi, that inevitably leads you to Anastasia, and learning more about somebody inevitably leads you to learning more about their background. If you learn about their background, you know more about the characters and how their upbringing, which I think is really interesting. So I think it's what you said reminded me of that. He's very determined, I feel. And he said he's open, so it may not happen, but it seems like he's very determined to get everybody to have a chance to do what they need to do in this story with the proper amount of fleshing out, which is nice.
Yeah.
In my opinion, at least.
It feels like he really could do that too. Like, over the last few chapters, we've had different perspectives nearly constantly, depending on which chapter it is. And, like, I think with the way he's written these characters, like, you could continue following on with any of these characters and have them as a protagonist if need be. So, like, I think if he wanted to do that, like, these characters are good enough to stand alone.
Well, yeah, the X novels show that. Like, the X novels flat out show you, like, one of them is from Priscilla's perspective, one of them is from Crush's. Like, these characters can stand on their own, like, really well. It's crazy how well he can do that.
I agree. To answer your question earlier, Wolf, when you asked how much of Subaru is in Tapei, something that somebody said a while ago, which is very interesting, is the fact that, like, in reality, all of these characters come from the author, which sounds crazy to think about considering all of the different crazy characters in ReZero, but there is so much, like it's bewildering to think how much like truth that he has in all of these characters, and that he's able to pull out from himself and give like convincing, emotional, grounded stories to. Considering he's definitely not, Krush. He's definitely not Priscilla, but like you read it and it feels like this comes from someplace within him that is very like rare from a writer. You have so many different perspectives.
Yeah, I was going to bring this up as a thing. He is a very unique writer in a sense, because there are very few writers like this that have such good comprehension of their characters that their characters are actually beyond their own scope, where their characters literally go in their own direction. With the way To Pay seems, he's got the main plot planned out, but he's letting the characters guide the minor directions of stuff.
I'm pretty sure he said that happens, like straight up. Like he can't stop writing the dialogue, and the dialogue writes itself, which is really interesting.
Which is because it's a phenomenal skill to have, right? It's also a very rare thing. But yeah, when you get to this level of writing, it's so impressive. It really is, especially considering he's mentioned the fact, I think, in interviews that he can't like visually imagine what's happening in his novels.
Yeah, I can't either. Right.
It's just I can't remember what it's called, but it's an actual thing where you just can't visually imagine like words that.
Yeah, I have that. Yeah.
And he says he can't do that himself. So the fact that he's able to do that whilst also having that sort of like roadblock for him mentally is so impressive. And leading on to the thing you said about how there's a bit of To Pay in every single character, you're right in saying that. I think any good writer, the way they ground their character and develop their character and make them unique but also relatable and almost as if they are a person, is by putting a bit of themselves in the character.
Well, there's something I'd like to bring up with that mindset. And this also kind of, I remember this from the 10th anniversary question and answer. Not the 10th, this wasn't the 10th anniversary. Sorry, this came from the recent one that just happened. The last few times I mentioned anniversary, I meant this one. He really doesn't like the archbishops. Like, he seems like he does not like to write them, or he does not like them as characters. He wouldn't even, like, there was a question where they were like, in this question and answer, it's like, what is the birthday of this archbishop or something like that? And he straight up said he doesn't care enough to give them birthdays, just their birthday can be the day any one of them died. So I'm just like, how would you, with a writer who very clearly doesn't even like his own creations to an extent, how would you place him being a part of that? Like, it genuinely seems like he just flat out, like, he made them to ignore them, which is kind of weird.
I think it's less perhaps that he dislikes them because of his writing of them, maybe, and more in the sense of perhaps he sees those parts of those characters as the things that are wrong with people, or like the things that are like they are accentuations of flaws within people.
I think he assumes that they're like concepts. They're not like people at this point. They're like corpses that are being puppeteered as concepts,
and
right?
I think
So that's sort of
how he did, especially with Betelgeuse' backstory in Arc 4. He's very much promoting the idea that they were once people, like actual, like individual from this.
Yeah, they were once people.
But this is what they've become when they followed this path, and To Pay considers that to be evil. And I think that's a really interesting thing to talk about, with how they're all foils to Subaru in some way or the other. I think To Pay is speaking to not only just maybe a small part of himself that has like some, maybe because when you have like a bad thought, or you have like a thought you would consider to be quote unquote sinful, just the small things like that kind of build up to these sort of things. I think that's where he kind of draws that from. But To Pay very much seems like a person, doesn't see the world in black and white, because he very much sees it as a grey, with how complicated his characters are.
Exactly.
But he condemns evil, especially with the Subaru. Subaru as his main character, someone who condemns evil so like violently, it very much seems to me Capella is trying to say, this is what I perceive to be true evil. And so
I feel like there's a point to where they change into this specific. Yeah, I was about to say, because I'm pretty sure he mentioned that they're straight up evil people.
Yeah.
So I find it pretty interesting, the events and the where the line is drawn between what is truly evil and what's.
Because he's decidedly sympathetic to a lot of characters that are considered quote unquote evil.
Like Elsa,
you know, Bailey, or yeah.
I mean, we can also look at a few chapters back, Regulus, when he's describing Regulus, and how Regulus is fine, but his perception of the world is just so messed up, and that's kind of where he went wrong.
I think it's also because the archbishops are so closely like foils to Subaru. I think it's really interesting, especially with, like the if stories as context. It's really cool to say that I think the archbishops are very much almost not representations because they're their own characters, but they're like the idea of what if Subaru was like consumed by this sin. What if Subaru delved too deeply into these thoughts and became this person? The archbishops are like warnings to people, like don't get consumed by this, don't let this control you, because Subaru is someone that's controlled by his emotions, but he overcomes his flaws. Because Capella isn't saying that your emotions controlling you is bad. He's saying that you can't let evil consume you.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that, you know, makes sense to me as like one of the core themes of ReZero is that like reality is painful, but you can't allow that to make yourself deluded to what reality truly is. No matter how difficult it might be to keep on going, no matter what it is, because all of the villains are completely deluded with all these feelings, right? And he acknowledges that these feelings exist. That's something that Subaru goes through all the time when he faces them individually. But he doesn't like the idea of it consuming you or making you, you know, incapable of doing the right thing, whatever that is at the time. You know, I think that's very important, a very important message and theme of ReZero.
And I think it very much relates to the idea. I think Tape's overarching message is when he's speaking to people that were once in Subaru's position of don't get consumed by your lust or your greed or your pride or be stuck in your ways. Open yourself up to the world and don't be afraid to try and better yourself. Because the reason why the archbishops I think he considers are so evil is because they don't change. It's because they don't progress. Subaru is someone that changes, that grows and like overcomes his problems and his flaws. But the archbishops don't. They've gotten to the point where they are and they've stayed there and they haven't moved and they don't lose their delusions, not even for a second. Even when Subaru tries to contradict them, because you can see it with Regulus especially, when Subaru tries to contradict him and tries to break his logic, it doesn't work. They're overtaken by their delusions. They can't come out of them. There is no redemption for someone that can't even be willing to see a bit of someone else's perspective. Do you know what I mean? Because they don't even see each other's perspectives. The archbishops don't like each other. Like, well,
some of them.
Some of them. But even when, say, for instance, Sirius, the way she views Betelgeuse, she is not seeing things from Betelgeuse's perspective. She's not empathizing with him. It's the version of Betelgeuse in her head. It's the lesson Subaru learns about Amelia. The person inside your head is not that whole person. Your feelings about that person are valid, but that does not define who that person is.
It's kind of interesting to think about. I do wonder why he wrote them like this. It definitely, it doesn't even seem like it is a fact that some of these archbishops they act the exact opposite way unto which their titles would lead you to believe how they should act. You know, the sins like, I mean, obviously Juice, he's not sloth. I mean, he's always doing something. Like, he was always doing something. So I kind of wonder why he chose to write them in that particular way. They seem like there's a lot of underlying thematic things that haven't been explored with them, which I think will be kind of interesting to go into later.
For Betelgeuse in particular, I think we can all say without a doubt, in terms of power at least, he is the weakest archbishop. Right?
For sure.
And I think the reason why is because although he may be compatible with the witch factor that's inside him, he's not compatible with the sin the sin that's it regarding to, because the reason why he talks about sloth so much is because of everything that broke him back in Amelia's past. He felt he was too slothful. He didn't do enough.
Wasn't he not compatible with it?
He's not.
I'm pretty sure he was straight up not compatible with it, and that's why he was the way he was.
Bro was screaming and crying.
I very much got the impression that he's compatible with the witch factor, but not with like the sin itself. That's
Aren't those one and the same though? I feel like they're one and the same. The witch factor itself and the sin.
Maybe it was never explicitly stated. I guess that's just an opinionated thing.
That could also just be like our different observations. I'm not too sure if it was particularly stated or not. So for all I know, both of us could be wrong.
Yeah. I mean, hey, that's what we're here.
Here talking. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's really fun.
I guess that just taking on the slothful thing, since because Subaru now has that witch factor of sloth, like the argument could be made that like someone can have the witch factor but not be slothful, because like even Subaru himself, I wouldn't define him as slothful.
Yeah. So, well, this is why I was talking about. You caught on really well with this part. This is why I was talking about why Betelgeuse is the weakest archbishop in terms of power, because he's such a like diligent person that works so hard. Subaru still calls him slothful at one point during the end of Arc 3, because there's still some part of Betelgeuse that is slothful and is. I think Subaru, when he says that, is talking about the fact that Betelgeuse is so stuck in his own delusions. He's not diligent enough to try and work out of them. The difference between Subaru and Betelgeuse is Subaru is so diligent and hardworking, he tries to progress himself constantly. And the reason why Subaru's sloth authority is so weak and kind of almost useless is because even though he's compatible with the witch factor, he is like the least slothful person in the world.
Yeah, no, that's actually, I mean, I've thought of that before, but I completely forgot about that interpretation in general. Yeah, that's a interesting thought, honestly.
And it's also why some future stuff, especially in Arc 6, will make a lot more sense, I think. But when circling back quickly to like the archbishops and how they seem almost the opposite of their sins, I don't exactly think they're just concepts of that sin. I think they're a line of thought regarding that sin taken to the extreme. So Regulus's greed for the material, for instance, and for being this image of someone, his greed and ambition to be this exact thing, like this perfect gentleman that has everything perfectly because he comes from this background of being like the person at the bottom. That's the extension of his greed.
I think that's totally correct, and it's also a factor that like the nuance of the story is so great because Tepe shows in the witches that a lot of these sins themselves, like these witches that embody the sin, though they are the concept of these sins in themselves, you can see that they're good in like small bursts. You know, there's like thing where you're like, wow, Echidna is sort of nice and caring and sweet and sort of, you know, her ambition might be a bit much, but she has such like, you know, love for knowledge and for understanding things. And then you see, you know, Wrath, who is good at, you know, punching things for injustice, right? Which sounds good in theory, right? Like, oh, we beat up all the evildoers, right? And, you know, Gluttony herself says, you know, like, oh, well, isn't, you know, eating things, you know, a part of what makes us human? You know, is that all what all living things do? Like, isn't it very important? And that's what Tepe shows, right? But the Sin Archbishops in particular are these extreme bloated versions of all these concepts, and you know, they have, you know, such obsession over it that it ruined their entire life and their entire personality. You know, their identity becomes consumed by it.
Yeah, Betelgeuse, for instance, obsessed with the sloth of his past. Now, obviously, with how his mind is twisted, he doesn't exactly probably remember how it happened, but he's obsessed with the idea of his slothfulness before, and that's why he's so quote-unquote diligent. He's not truly diligent to, like, the degree of, like, evolving as a person, but he tries to work hard in accomplishing the goals of the witch cult, or what he believes they are. because he's so focused on the sloth of that day, he can't move past it. He can't. So that's why he's sloth. At least that's my interpretation of Betelgeuse in particular. But yeah,
No, I agree.
If you see all the other archbishops, they're just more extreme versions of that for that particular sin. Like, Capella is so wanting for love and attention and for everything to love her, but she can't allow others to love each other. She always has to be number one. It's the exact lust taken to extreme. Regulus's greed, his kingdom, he must be on top of the food chain. He must be above all. Even though these delusions they have are contradicted by other characters, whether in dialogue or, for instance, the involvement of Pandora with Regulus in Arc 4 in particular. There can be no one above me. But the way he regards Pandora until she goes past a certain point is like almost like, oh, you're above me. Like, those contradictions do not matter to the archbishops because they can't see past their own delusions.
Horse and archbishops.
Sorry, I'm just looking back on the anime and what Sinks said that he wasn't compatible with the Witch Factor, and it was said in the anime, and I'm looking for that. I don't specifically see that explicitly stated though, so.
And you know, ReZero is pretty good, huh?
Yeah.
Kind of
Very
mid.
good.
kind of mid.
6 out of 10.
I've watched an even better isekai. It's called In Another World with My Smartphone.
Oh,
Masterpiece.
True.
I
mean,
would-
why aren't we doing that?
Wolf and Pat, I'd like you to take a look at the key visual for Shield Hero that came out in Staff General Chat. I think this key visual shows the quality of the writing that it has because it's such a good key visual and not cringe at all. It's so amazing.
It's like a 3D background and
Our
2D
regrets make us
characters. What
stronger.
the
So
hell?
does that mean?
That is.
So does that mean that Shield Hero Season 2 will make Shield Hero Season 3
Yeah.
better? It was so regretful.
That's quite literally one of the worst key visuals I've ever seen in my life.
Honestly, as well, I think I read up to like volume 7 of the light novel for Shield Hero. And the writing in that story makes me so mad. I refuse to read past that point. I could not do it.
At least even give it a try, you know?
I tried so hard to be like, okay, maybe I can see some merit in this, but it's so poorly written.
Why does it look like a book cover? Like a regular book cover? Probably the font or something.
Graphic design is my passion.
I'm sorry, but I can, for Shield Hero in particular, I cannot get past the incompetence of these other heroes. That's the thing that annoys me the most about the story.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys
They aren't
agree
even
with
fun and incompetent. They're just annoying.
They're like written poorly.
There is no way on planet Earth there are people this incompetent after going through the things they have gone through. There is no way.
They're supposed to be like the candidates. It's a clear contrast, right? That we can see from ReZero to this. Like, the candidates are all capable in their own ways, right? We get nuance to their characters, we get all this stuff. These other heroes are completely just, like, imbecilic. They always mess up. They always are, like, shown up by the Shield Hero. They're always like, oh, you aren't actually like a hero. Like, I can tell because you're doing all these things. You're just posing and doing all this stuff. And look how I'm better than you in this one scenario. And it's always like that.
And I think the reason why it annoys me the most about Shield Hero is because at first I thought it was going to be a story particularly about, that would kind of disillude the idea of power fantasy in isekai. A bit like a lot with what ReZero does. Obviously, there's elements of power fantasy in all isekai. But when it got to the point where all these other characters are just looking stupid just so the main character can look cool.
Make it look good, yeah.
It disregards the idea of it trying to break that idea of power fantasy for me. I can't enjoy it in good conscience.
Have you
It's not a very good series. Like I remember getting up to the point where like apparently having people as slaves makes them stronger, which
I always hate the fucking slave narratives in isekai. Why? Just
God,
have a
it's so
companion.
horrible.
Why do you need to buy them? Just have a companion.
Well, to be fair, it's reflective of our own world. I mean, you could say that about like literally our own world. So I get it, but it's not done in a tasteful or good manner at all in Shield Hero. So yeah. unfortunate.
I guess I could say I enjoyed season 1, but I had to stop at like season 2. They got into a turtle or something. I don't care anymore. I don't get it.
I think one thing that I think really irritates me in particular about Shield Hero is it very much does the opposite of what ReZero does, where it has so many characters with all these intersecting plot lines and all this separate stuff, which I'm pretty sure loads of side stories have been written about. The problem for me is they're not interesting. They're not interesting. They don't have something interesting to say. They don't even like have interesting dialogue. They are just characters in this world. They're like plot devices.
They're one
guy with the sword, with the spear, with
like,
the bow, and then one of their
so
underlings.
what can we say about the spear hero? He's arrogant. He got murdered by like having multiple girlfriends.
He's Pristella, but like not hot and not successful.
And he likes children. Like
yeah,
that's his character.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Oh,
he likes children.
Do you not? Oh. I don't think you've gotten to that point. Yeah, he...
Was that in season 2 or something?
That was 1.
That was season 1.
That was season 1. With
I guess I ignored it.
The bird girl.
The bird girl,
yeah. Oh,
fuck
this guy.
He has a thing for the bird girl.
Jesus.
Oh my god.
You know, I was gonna bring up what you thought about Rudius, but, you know, I think I can see where you may stand on that, Wolf. Considering
this is where I separate. So I completely understand why people enjoy Mushoku Tensei. Yeah. I can completely understand. I'm not going to tell someone off for enjoying that show.
I'm only asking this because the two authors are friends and they take inspiration from each other.
And
they even had a collab.
I very much feel the author for Mushoku Tensei is a phenomenal author. I have read some of the web novel myself, up to quite a, I think to the middle of the story.
Yeah.
And I will say it is a phenomenally written series. The characters are great. The world is awesome. The magic system, great. The main character, so well written. It's just not for me. I can't get behind some of the stuff with the main character at the beginning. Yeah, and that doesn't mean that no one can like him as a character. I completely understand why people love him. In fact, if it wasn't for that small element of his character, he would probably be one of my favorite main characters in anime.
Yeah, like my thing about Rudius has always been like, because I haven't read, but I do know like how it progresses because I have friends who really like it, and I was like, and I was to them like, oh yeah, just like explain it to me. So I'm as one thing, but I will say Rudius is a very well written improvement character.
Yes.
However, he starts out at like the middle of the earth as a human being, so there's only so far that you can bring somebody up.
And
But for me, Mushoku Tensei, I didn't know exactly how bad he was, but I got into the anime. I liked all the side characters. I learned about Rudius, and I'm like, I know that he improves. I like all these other characters, so I'm going to continue.
And that is totally fair.
Yeah.
And I can totally understand why people love it. It's just for me personally, for me with Subaru at least, I can comprehend his human issues to a degree where I can see how he's fallen into these problems and how he's treated these other people in this world like NPCs because of his expectations. I can't get behind the lolly stuff. I'm sorry, I can't do it. Especially the anime and the light novel, it's quite toned down from what I've heard. In the web novel, which I originally read, it is very much stated that the main character likes people that look like little girls.
It got censored on translation.
And you know, the way he progresses, from what I remember, was phenomenal. His character development is great. So I'm not going to tell anyone else for enjoying Mushoku Tensei. I love him, Rudius. It's just not for me.
It's interesting, and I think they're very different, but I feel like Rudius and Subaru are two sides of the same coin to an extent. They are very different people, and they go through different arcs, but I feel like the end result will be the same, and the sort of hero's journey they take is the same, but they do it in very different ways, and I think it's really interesting, honestly, how two people can be so different and end up in the same.
I will always admire Mushoku Tensei for being able to do that and being such a well-written series. There are many things I can say about Rudius, but I cannot say he's a poorly written character. I cannot say Mushoku Tensei is not an enjoyable story. or a really well written story.
Yeah, but he's literally me.
In the worst way possible.
I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was trying to give you an out, but...
there's no out.
Anyways, before we piss off more Isekai fans, is there anything else
the next
from
part?
this chapter, or maybe like any stuff like season 3 that we've been thinking that we haven't gotten to say yet, or stuff like that?
I could talk about season 3 for like 3 hours, so no.
Yeah, I could go on endlessly. I think we should save that for another day. I will say I'm very excited to see this stuff animated in particular. I think the way they're going to visualize Al's powers are going to be really important, and
That's
really
going to be super cool. I've always... Oh, wait, I don't want to spoil Pat. Never mind.
Yeah,
no. Go ahead.
Nope.
I'm not listening.
No, we're not doing... We're not... No, Pat, you're going to
but,
suffer in your ignorance, my friend.
I can't wait to see how Twitter reacts to Capella.
Oyuki for Capella. Oyuki, thanks. Need her. She's so good. God, I think she should have a sweet voice. I think she should have a sweet voice, like, but then like the turns really raspy. I don't know. I feel like again they can take her voice direction a lot of different places, but I feel like she should have a sweet voice.
Grading, what are we doing?
I think personally, I agree. I think the direction to go is we shouldn't. Lust isn't. Like, she isn't actually seductive. She has deluded herself into thinking she is.
I mean, she has a bit of seductious power to her. You know.
Yeah, I don't know, Wolf.
I give her the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, okay.
I'll give her.
All the people on Twitter can disagree with me. That's fair.
Okay.
But I will say I think they should make her voice like nails on chalkboard. It should be so annoying.
Yeah, the way she talks is not seductive. Other parts maybe.
Oh
the way she talks is not seductive.
Yeah, they can make the most visual fan service they want. That's fair. Make her noise so fucking annoying. I want her to die.
Fair enough. Yeah, I was about to say there's multiple ways they could go about it. So I think either which way is good. Yeah. No. Again, this chapter is sort of just like action and then talking. So there's not really a whole lot to talk about, honestly. So
But,
I think I got all my thoughts out.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy.
We still went like an hour, so.
Yep.
Yeah, I had a great time. It was really fun.
Yeah.
Any final comments, or are we all?
Chapter 61. It was good.
It was a banger.
It was good. Capella's hot.
Okay, and with that,
final?
And that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you all for stopping by to our stream, and thank you everyone for watching along with us and discussing with us. It was so much fun.
Yeah, thank you all for joining, everyone who's watching right now.
Thanks for coming.
And thank you everybody that joined this call. Everybody who is currently here, please say thanks to them and check them out wherever they are doing stuff, because some of them are. And make sure to join the Discord. Link in the description down below if you aren't already a part of it. And
join the madhouse. Join the madhouse.
As we'll give you updates. There will be plenty of updates going forward. And just make sure everyone knows we're working hard to continue a decent schedule for all of you.
Yep.
So look forward to that.
Look forward to more stuff in the future, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.